Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Bourbon Basement. My name's Ryan,
And I'm Steve.
and today we're going to be doing another tasting. This one is specifically special to me. This is one of my favorite bourbons that I've had, and I knew that before our previous tasting that we had for your birthday, but it just proved it because it was my favorite one that I chose between, and we have been over that in another episode. Go back and watch it if you haven't already. It's the tasting recap on our YouTube channel, but we're going to be tasting some Colonel E.H. Taylor today. What do you think about it?
I'm excited.
I
I enjoyed it the last time. We have done an official tasting of it. That's true. I'm wondering if I'm going to get the same things today that I did that day, because that day we had 5 bourbons. This was the 4th one that we tasted.
Was it the 4th?
It was.
We've got sheets down here somewhere that would tell
Well,
us.
I got them right here because I was going to let everybody know a little later, but I can get into it now since we brought up the tasting. The last time we did a tasting, we had 6 people. It was a blind tasting, so nobody knew what they were drinking.
He was the only one that knew.
But
you even mixed
I
yours
mixed
up on
mine
accident.
up on accident. Yeah. So, but even then, we had 6 people. 4 people chose this as their number 1 bourbon, and 2 people chose it as their number 2. During that tasting, we also had the Henry McKenna 10-year.
It was a good lineup.
Well, right here, Bardstown Bourbon
This one,
Origin Series.
Yeah, Origin Series.
We had Rebel 10-year, of course, the Colonel E.H. Taylor, and then Poor Man's Pappy. And if you watch that episode, you'll figure out how to make that, and we actually do a tasting of that.
It is called the Bourbon Basement Tasting Recap on our
But
YouTube
only
channel.
one person chose the Poor Man's Pappy as their number 1, and one person chose the Bardstown Bourbon Original Series.
This one was my favorite. Of course, I didn't have any doubts.
This was my favorite as well. So we both like this one the best out of those that we tried. This is just the Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. It's they make. I wrote this down too. I can't remember all this, but they make several different versions. They are all allocated. This one here is the probably easiest to find of them because you can actually go to Frankfurt to the Buffalo Trace Distillery where this is made, and they put it on the shelf like every 3rd or 4th day. You just have to find out if it's there the day that you're going, and you can buy that for $55 at the distillery. $55 is a good price on this. I think in the liquor stores and stuff around here, it's going $130 to $200, just depending on how much they have and how long it sits there.
But I might have missed it. You already told them you could get it cheaper, correct?
You don't listen, do you?
No,
Yes.
I was typing.
Buffalo Trace Distillery for $55. But they also make, and I was interested in the E.H. Taylor lineup because this is the only bottle I've ever had. It's my only bottle right now, and I'd like to get some other versions of it. So this one here is the small batch. They do make a single barrel and a barrel proof, which I hear those are very popular.
I'd like to try that.
Those are very popular. I like single barrels and barrel proof bourbons, so maybe we try that with these if we ever get our hands on one.
I'd be down.
They don't do those at the distillery, though. This is the only one they put on the shelf at the distillery. So that's why it's easier for us to get. The others you have to find out there.
Mm.
Yeah, and they're pretty expensive.
Disappointment.
I also was reading on there they do an old-fashioned sour mash. They do a seasoned wood, a cured oak, a 4-grain, and what do you even pronounce this one as?
Amaranth.
Amaranth. And they do an 18-year marriage. And then some too that a lot of people get excited about is Warehouse C. But the one that everybody wants to try to collect is the Warehouse C Tornado Survivor.
I've heard about that one.
And
one of the most expensive bourbons.
It's very high just because the tornado come through and tore down the warehouse. And
I actually saw a video on that one time. It was on the top 5 list of most expensive or sought after bourbons. Yeah.
And that was just because it set out in the elements for a year or so before they got a warehouse built back.
Because it survived. I don't know. Just because the barrel wasn't destroyed.
Well, as you know, with our show, we do a little bit of history, and then we start talking about the bourbon a little bit, and then we do our tasting. So the history, let's start with the man, Colonel E.H. Taylor. So
I've recently heard some things that I'm a little disappointed about.
Well, we'll get into it. So he was a larger than than life man. He did it. He showed it in his from the way he dressed to his achievements that he had. He had a genius level IQ and pretty much an ego to go with it.
Show him a little picture of him here.
All right.
See. That was the Colonel himself. Hopefully y'all can see that okay.
So anyway, he had many achievements in the distilling world himself. He introduced the copper fermentation tanks. He introduced column stills. And one of the more interesting ones, and if you go to Buffalo Trace now, you can still see this today, climate-controlled aging warehouses. So they've got these pipes that's overhead now, and it's steam heat, and they regulate the temperature in their warehouses throughout the winter and everything. Because we do have some cold. Well, he come up with that all the way back in the 1800s. So just imagine.
Way ahead of his time.
That's what I say. So they still use that today, like I said. But in 1869, he retired from banking. Oh, he was a banker, a businessman, a banker, politician, and then he got into the distilling business.
He dressed like a politician.
Yeah, and he got into the, well, he was like the nephew or something of the President Taylor. I forget what that was, but he had ties to politics as well.
We do have a comment.
What is the comment?
What branch of the service did he serve in?
It's a very good comment. And with the name Colonel, you would think that he served in the Army or something. Well, he was not a colonel in the military. He was a colonel, a Kentucky colonel, and just the name went with him. So he was a Kentucky colonel. Colonel Sanders, because it's Colonel is in name only. But I wouldn't take. I mean, he didn't. I don't know if he served in the military. I didn't find that out.
We can't take that away from him.
But I did find out that the name Colonel wasn't his rank in the military. It's just a title. Like he was a Kentucky colonel, kind of like Colonel Sanders.
He seemed awfully busy to have had time to have served in the military.
That's a very good question, though. So thanks for asking. Well, where was I now? So he, in 1869, he bought his first distillery, which was the old OFC distillery, which stands for, well, it's right here.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I know. Old Fashioned Copper. All right. So OFC distillery stands for Old Fashioned Copper. And I think it's funny because Colonel E.H. Taylor bottles of bourbon, Buffalo Trace didn't start making them until 2011, but they still say right now that they're distilled and aged bottled in the Old Fashioned Copper distillery, which now is called Buffalo Trace. So you can still see that the distillery, they still have OFC on their warehouses and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. If you haven't been on a Buffalo Trace tour, do it. It's a nice tour. What makes it even more nice is that it's free.
I didn't go on that one, I don't think.
It's a free tour, and then they do a free tasting at the end. It's very, very
very charitable.
Popular. It's very popular. So you have to book early because it is free. And most tours go for $25 to $45
depending on where you go.
So, but they don't. You don't get to try like Pappy Van Winkle. They don't even say they make it there. We just know they do. But you don't get to try the allocated bourbons there. We did get to try Eagle Rare that day because it was on the shelf. So I guess whatever's on the shelf that day, they will let you try.
If it happens to be allocated, you'll get to try it.
Yeah, I'm assuming, but just the one. But anyway, so that was his first one. He bought it. He was successful to a point, but he went in and he started redoing that distillery, and it grew so fast and too large, and he actually got in a lot of financial trouble. And so it kind of hurt his ego being in some financial trouble and everything, because he was a banker and a businessman, and like I said, a larger than life figure in the community. So anyway, he bought that in 1869, but in 1878 he had to sell it. So he sold the Buffalo or the OFC distillery and Old Fashioned Copper. He sold it and got rid of it, but just like in standard E.H. Taylor fashion, he picked himself up, dusted himself off, and he got right back into it. And this is what's even more interesting to me because I've been on this tour too. So in 1889, he actually built the Old Taylor Distillery. Now, do you know the Old Taylor Distillery? What do you think I'm talking about? Old Taylor Distillery. You haven't been on this one. You need to go with us on this tour. We will go back. And you need to at least go and see the grounds. Because you don't have to take a tour to see what it looks like.
Is it in Taylor County?
Well, no, it's in Frankfort as well. But the Old Taylor Distillery is now called Castle and Key. All right. So what he did with the Old Taylor Distillery, though, every one of those stones was imported over here to build an actual castle. This dude built the castle. So he had financial trouble, had to sell his old distillery, but then went right down the road. I mean, it's probably less than 10 miles, I know, from his old distillery.
He liked the area.
And he built the daggone castle. Now, this just wasn't any castle, so it was a distillery. But he built the castle. He built these grounds that are magnificent. He built a sunken garden. And it wasn't just the distillery to him. It was today's version of a distillery. His ideal was to make this a place where people come and had weddings and events and parties. And this was his vision. He actually was the first distiller in his distillery of the Old Taylor Distillery to sell merchandise, to hold events, to hold tours of his facility, and to hold tastings. And what's that sound like?
An entrepreneur?
It sounds like any bourbon distillery that you see today. Because
He set the precedent.
He did. He was like 100 years ahead of his time. 100 years ahead of his time. So I think that's really cool. And if you haven't been to Castle and Key, that's the Old Taylor Distillery. They'll give you a little bit more history about that, but it is a super place to go and visit. And it is beautiful. Recently restored back in, I want to say 2004. Does my producer remember? Somewhere in the early 2000s. It was wishful thinking. It was disturbed. Well, after it went through its thing and he passed, and I don't know what happened to it, but it sat abandoned for over 40 years. And then Castle and Key come along, and I'll talk more about that when we do a Castle and Key tasting. Right now, all my bottles are sitting over there empty. But anyway,
that's the only reason he said he was going back on that tour.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to say on that is he wanted it. So he worked with the railroad company, and they built a railroad track. And back then, that's how people got around, was by railroad. They built the railroad track right to the distillery, and it was like a stop. It was a standard stop on the railroad station. That they pull in there and stop. People would get off, go to the distillery, get back on, and go on their way.
And had the setup.
He did. It was pretty fantastic to hear all the history and just to go see the grounds. And he's responsible for all that. But his legacy kind of is where he was a politician and everything. He was most forefront with cleaning up the bourbon industry. So bourbon has to have many rules. Okay, there's many rules in bourbon, and a lot of people will cheat those rules. And that there's still counterfeit bourbons out there today. People selling the fake. I mean, bourbon's expensive, right? A lot of bourbons are expensive, these rare ones. So people still counterfeit those today and do that, and which is bad. But back then, and there are still these today. But have you ever heard of a rectifier?
Heard of it. Couldn't tell you what it really is.
You've probably heard of it on some of the tours that we've been on, because they talk about rectifiers and they talk about Bottled in Bond Act of 1897. Yeah. Okay. Well, rectifiers today, they are not distillers. They purchase bourbon barrels or bourbon from other distilleries, usually young bourbon, and they'll take it and they'll store it in their warehouses, and then they'll bottle it. And we've had one recently. Calumet is the one I think of. That is kind of a rectifier that produces that bourbon. All right. So anyway, that's today. That's all legit. They do everything like they're supposed to. But back in the day, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, a rectifier, more often than not, was a scammer. And what he would do is he'd go buy a barrel of bourbon, young barrel of bourbon, and then he would cheat instead of aging it and stuff, he would cheat and just add stuff to that young bourbon to make it look old. And then he'd sell it as an old bourbon.
Seems like so much work.
Well, and it was
probably not a whole
but
lot
it
of
was
money.
not only work, it was dangerous because it didn't matter what they put in it to age it. I mean, sometimes it was prune juice, sometimes it was old tobacco juice, because back in the day there was like spittoons on the streets because they was trying to clean up the streets. People would spit in these spittoons. They would take those spittoons, pour it in that barrel of
Add a
bourbon
little bit of color
to
at
add
that boy.
the color and to add flavor. Is that not gross?
Hey, I've tasted bourbons that taste like tobacco, so I'm
do.
questioning whether they've done this.
No. But sometimes they would put rusty nails in it. Sometimes it wasn't bourbon at all. Sometimes it was whatever cheap look. Yeah, a lot of germs.
Is this
lot
when the
of,
plague was going around?
No, this is 1800 in early 1900. But
Sorry, history teachers.
But anyway, they would just add whatever they could to make it look old. Sometimes even taste disgusting and old, and then sell it as the good stuff. Well, it gave all the other, it gave like the OFC, it gave them a bad name because they may be selling it with their label on it, or they may be getting used bottles of their bourbon and refilling it and selling it as that, and people are like getting sick and dying, and it's just giving that bourbon a bad name. So he was
Some
really
people might have liked it.
well. I doubt it.
Some people are like, man, it's good stuff.
I'd be like, man, I got this Pappy for $5. Can you believe that? And he'll drink it. This is the best stuff ever.
Tastes like Pappy's backy juice.
I wouldn't want to say it was bad because I got a Pappy Van Winkle, but it was rectified with some rusty nails. And anyway, it doesn't go on today. And the reason that is because of Colonel Taylor. He's a big part of that. He pushed for some regulations on bourbon where they could police the unsafe products.
That's the politician coming out in him.
Out of the market, and it was successful, and it became the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897. And you can read more about Bottled in Bond. There's a lot of history on that, but basically it was just policing out the old bad stuff because they had rules involved with their barreling and everything else. And so Bottled in Bond, this is a Bottled in Bond bourbon today. So that's good. But with all the safety, and he brought safety and consistency to the bourbon world, and he is known today as the father of modern bourbon. So that's Colonel E.H. Taylor history in a nutshell. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about the bourbon Colonel E.H. Taylor. So this one's a small batch, and it is bottled in bond. I know it's 4 years old, and I know it's 100 proof because it's bottled in bond. I know it was put out in 2011 to honor Colonel E.H. Taylor, and it is produced by Buffalo Trace Distillery with a lot of other versions that I've never had and hope someday to get.
Maybe. I wouldn't hold your breath or anything, but
Christmas present, wink, wink.
I think he's overestimating my price of presents.
Yeah, I don't know. So this in a liquor store goes for just say 150.
Sure.
Buffalo Trace, it was 55. I'm sure the barrel proofs and the the single barrels, they're going to be probably $200 to $300. And then those other ones, I've never even seen that. I've actually seen the barrel proof and the single barrels in stores, but I've never seen the other ones even in the store. The other ones that I talked about.
Well, they are rare.
The old fashioned sour mash, cured oak, seasoned wood, 4 grain, the 18-year marriage. Wonder if that's an 18-year bourbon, or if it just is talking about maybe he was married for 18 years or something. I don't know.
Have you said his full name at all? Or are you just saying
No,
E.H.?
I just say E.H. What is his full name?
All right, well, his full name, guys, is Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr.
Edmund Haynes.
Edmund Haynes.
So there you go. Thanks, Ray. You pull anything else on there? You showed him his name. You didn't. This the part of the
I
distillery.
showed him the picture. This picture might look a little better.
Yeah, well, this one here, show them the distillery there because part of that is still at Buffalo Trace
It's a
today.
castle.
No, that's not the castle.
It looks like a castle.
No, that's old. That's the old.
I'm aware of what the old copper, whatever. Leave me be.
That building's still there today. It's like right by the gift shop. You can't miss it when you walk out of the gift shop. And you'll see all the steam tunnels above your head. You'll see a very crowded, very, very, very crowded gift house or gift shop, and a lot of bourbon, and a lot of good bourbon. I mean, Buffalo Trace is probably the one I think about for allocated bourbons. Of course, they make Colonel E.H. Taylor, they make Eagle Rare, they make Blanton's, they make Wellers.
Buffalo Trace makes a lot of
They got
bourbons.
a lot of allocated bourbons. We know they make Pappy Van Winkle. They won't say it.
You didn't hear that from us, though.
If you want to credit me for it, I spilled the secret. But they do make it, and well, it's on Netflix.
They told us that in trust.
It's on Netflix where the people thieve a bunch of Pappy from Buffalo Trace Distillery. So it's there. I mean, it's out there. Everybody knows. They just won't tell you where it is, so you can't go thieve it no more. You want to get the
It's
taste?
not there.
Is it time to taste?
Whatever.
All right, let's talk. So it comes in this neat little thing. I think this is awesome.
It's a very nice looking canister.
I love it. It looks good on my shelf. The only difference in the other ones is I think some writing changes.
If you follow us on TikTok, you've also already seen this, but we had to get the placemat to go with the old Colonel here. So we're EH Coloneled out on our shelf, which once again you would have seen on the TikTok walk around episode, or no, just the episode, or the walk around video that I did. You will have seen that we do have an entire shelf dedicated to just Edmund Haynes here.
This is one of our favorites. I'd like to have more bottles.
Yeah, I bet you would.
Christmas gift.
He's gonna keep on, and he's gonna be real disappointed.
I'll be able to
Christmas
get this
morning.
one. Well, I'll even take that one again for Christmas because it won't. I mean, it's open now. We're drinking it. It'll be gone before too long.
All right, what?
Let's get to some taste.
What are we doing here?
We're going to taste.
What are we doing?
Are you going anywhere?
I don't know.
If you're going somewhere later, do the small one.
Well, it
You can
depends.
give me the big one.
Depends on if you wanted to talk about what else we needed to talk about. Are we doing?
I had one out.
Where?
Oh, that's fine.
I didn't see one.
Yeah, that's fine. Pop that thing. You're the popper, right?
I don't know if this one will pop. It's been popped a couple times already. Oh yeah. And what a nice. I couldn't help. I couldn't help
Stick
it.
your nose in the
I couldn't
bottle,
help it.
Ryan. I got a drink out of that.
That thing just wafted up right into my nostrils, and I just couldn't help myself.
I got a drink out of that.
Now look, I'm gonna try to pour with my left hand and dump with my right. I don't know if this is gonna work out properly or not.
Well, remember, I want the big pour. I'm here tonight.
This could go.
It's
wrong.
Friday night at home. I'm gonna have this. Oh, look at you!
I'm slurping. Don't worry. That
Don't
that ain't being wasted.
don't slurp it.
I might have been better off dumping with my left hand.
It might have been better off letting me dump it. I told you I wanted the big one. You gave me the little one.
All right, that one went a little better.
It's fine. I'll get more.
I'll give you an ounce and a half.
I'll get more. I'm sure you won't give me a hug later. I'll be drinking more anyway.
Don't give away the outro. Some people have never watched before.
You'll give me a hug tonight.
I know.
All right. So, Colonel E.H. Taylor.
Edmund Haynes, Jr.
Here we go.
I'm going to let a few of these tears develop and then show y'all the little close-up like I always do.
It is one of the best noses
Oh
that
my
I've had
gosh.
so far. It is so good. It's got a little bit of sweetness
It's
in there,
sweet.
but
It's smooth.
man, I smell like baked apples with cinnamon.
It's apple pie worthy, I think.
It smells very good.
Nutmeggy.
Our
This
producer,
is
our producer is going to have a smell.
when I smell this, I think of Christmas, and it's just right around the corner, guys.
You want me to pour you one?
Cinnamon,
It's very good.
cinnamon, apple, nutmeg. Like this is just right up holiday alley.
It's good.
It's good. It's so good.
I like the baked apples with the cinnamon smell in there.
And this is not us being biased. This is just a really good smelling bourbon.
Our
Producer
producer-
said eggnog.
Yeah. And that's a good.
I don't know if I'm quite getting eggnog. I'm getting the nutmeg of eggnog, but I'm getting more apple, like apple cider.
It's whatever you get. Like we told y'all many times before, noses and palates are different, but whatever you get, I bet it smells good to you. I don't get those normal. You know that's on camera, right?
I was waiting for you to say something. Like, oh, you're tasting it before we actually taste. What are we doing?
Well, I get a little caramel in there. I don't get a lot of oak or smoke in there though.
I get smoke. That's kind of why I said apple cider. It's like a spicier cider. I haven't given them the close up yet. I'm not getting as many tears. Maybe I'm twisting mine around too much.
Mine's got a good. I mean, I've seen thicker ones. But I love the color. And it's got some decent tears. They just take a little while to develop.
They take a while to develop.
Look at them all coming down through here.
Yeah, look. I mean, but they drop so slowly.
We'll give them our thing. I'm going in for my first.
All right. If y'all have never tuned into us before, we always do the same routine when we're tasting. We do our first sip, which is just an acclimation. We'll do another sip after that, after we let it sit on our tongue for about 5 seconds, and we'll do another acclimation test. And then our third sip will be when we actually start trying to pull out some of the flavors.
So there's not a lot of burn to this one for 100 proof.
Not 100 proof.
Not a lot of burn, but I'm gonna let that settle just a second. I'm going back for my second one already. Don't be bringing out the elements yet.
It's hard not to.
It's very good, even from the first drink.
It's so good.
With not a lot of burn being in there, you start tasting stuff immediately. I can't wait to try the single barrels and the barrel proofs.
If we can ever get our hands on them, that'll be a real treat. Now, I'm going to tell you right now.
We can. It's just paying the money for it.
Well, there's this one flavor that shoots out to me immediately.
Okay. You doing it now or you want to wait?
No, that was my second sip. I'll wait. But okay. I don't foresee my third sip tasting any different.
No, it'll just be more
prominent.
Yeah.
But that was our first 2 sips, acclimation, letting it sit on our tongue, getting the burn out of the way, just so when you do your third sip, the burn's not an issue anymore, and you can spend all your time and all your focus trying to pull out those flavors. All right, so this is my third. Have you already gone in?
My third's done, and the experts don't start judging until their third sip as well. And if you go to a bunch of tastings, they want you to get at least 3 sips out of it as well. So, and they don't give you as much as we do. Our producer says vanilla, and I agree. A lot of vanilla in there.
I'm getting caramel apple. Like if you were to lick a caramel apple pop and just suck on it for a little bit, that's what I'm getting.
I'm not getting the caramel apple, but I'm getting the caramel more like a caramel corn.
I mean, apple even from the nose. I was smelling apple from the nose. I'm getting apple now. Caramel, saltiness. I'm still getting the nutmeggy spice flavor. There's a little bit of, what is that?
I get a little bit of peppery and a little bit of spice.
Maybe I was trying to pick out something a little more specific
than that. I get a peppery spice with the caramel, corn, and...
So everyone's getting caramel, everyone's getting vanilla. It's a sweet bourbon. It's not as sweet as the Four Roses that we did last week, but it is another sweet bourbon. It's very good.
Everything meshes so well with the sweetness and the spiciness, and it goes very smooth.
And neither one is overpowering the other. No. It's a very good combination of everything.
Now, I drink this neat. It's a very good sipping bourbon, just to sit back and drink neat. But we do always take a little bit of water and we add to it. It kind of resembles what you do on the rocks. And this is distiller's water. I got a little much. I'm gonna put like 6 or 7 in It's distiller's water, so it won't change the. It doesn't add flavor to it. So,
but it could very well change the profile.
It usually always does change the profile. Even the nose, it can change the nose too.
Well, it made it a lot sweeter.
Wow, it did. I'm getting. I get a lot of cherries in there now.
Man,
Do you get cherry?
I'm getting a lot more of the caramel flavor coming out. The caramel smell coming out. I'm still getting the fruit in it. It's not so much apple. I agree with you that it's a different fruit than apple now.
I get cherries and plums, and the cherries is an unusual
It's almost
one
like
for
a
me to
caramel
get.
peach.
You get peach?
A little bit.
I can see that. All right, let's see if it.
I don't
changed
know.
that
I don't
taste
think
in-
I've ever had a caramel covered peach, but
No,
I might
I
try
probably
it.
wouldn't try it.
I might try it after this.
Well, I mean, the smell it's
The
one thing, the
smell's
taste
good.
it's another. Okay.
Hmm.
So the water on this one made it a lot sweeter to me. You want some more?
Nose was sweeter. Taste was more spicy.
See, and my nose was sweeter and my taste was sweeter.
I'm getting more of.
I think our producer likes it.
I'm getting more.
Our producer, you wasn't in the tasting last time, were you?
So it was savory. The smell on the water was sweet, but the taste was a lot more savory. I'm getting the smokiness a lot more now.
So it's setting on my tongue and my mouth a little bit now, and right now I'm getting those spiciness, the spicy flavors, and that spicy finish. But originally, going down after the water, I had those sweet, fruity notes, and some caramel and vanilla. Uh, man, it's just a very good bourbon. It's a really good bourbon.
Once again, I'm gonna put my recommendation out there just for my palate. I would definitely recommend drinking this neat. I think this is just a very straightforward bourbon that doesn't need anything added to it. Maybe one singular ice cube, if that, if you just like to drink your bourbon chilled.
Or put it in the freezer.
Or put it in the freezer, yeah, chill it that way. But I don't think that it needs any kind of help other than neat. It's just a very, very. It's a complex yet simple bourbon at the same time. If that makes any sense.
It is pretty simple. I mean, because it didn't take us very long to get smells out of there. Usually we ciphered and ciphered and ciphered.
It's so easy.
It didn't take us very long to get taste. They were pretty prominent. The tastes are pretty prominent, and you know, 3 or 4 is what I pulled out of there. They were so prominent, and that's what I got. And but it all goes so well together.
I don't
so
remember
smooth.
what I pulled out when we did the tastings, but I know that I immediately smelled it and said, "Wow, this is sweet."
Let me see if I can. Oh, I don't have that. It doesn't matter.
I know for a fact that I smelled this one after the other ones that we had tasted. I was like, "Wow, this is sweet," especially compared to the other ones that we had.
Well, thumbs up.
There's not much to say about this one, guys.
Thumbs up. I do
It's
highly
as simple
recommend.
as this is a really good bourbon.
If you can get your hands on one, buy it. So $55 at the distillery, I think is a steal.
For this bottle,
$100 at the liquor store, I think is well worth it.
I'd pay it.
$150 at the liquor store, I'd buy one.
I would not buy multiple at that price, but I'd buy one.
Of course, I want to have them cheaper, but it's worth $150.
It's good bourbon.
It's worth $150.
It's a nice stout proof for those of you that like a little bit more stiffer of a drink, but it goes down like a 45 proof.
It's very smooth. The finish is long and stays with you, so you know you've drank bourbon, and it's not over spicy. It's not overly hot.
It's a very well balanced bourbon.
It won't turn any new bourbon drinkers away, and it'll keep experienced bourbon drinkers interested.
I'm gonna go ahead and give my rating. You went first on the last one.
All right.
Well, went first on the first bottle of the last one. I went first on the second. But I'm going to say that this is very beginner friendly. If you can get it at the distillery, it's a really good price. It's a higher proof than what you would normally get with the 80 proof, like Woodford or.
Well, being bottled in bond, it has to be 100 proof.
Woodford's
right here.
80 or Okay, so I was a little off on the Woodford, which is odd for me. But it does not seem like a 100 proof bourbon. Like he was saying, I don't think it's going to turn any new bourbon drinkers off. Um, the appearance is fantastic. Love the color of it. Love the thickness of it. Smell fantastic. Taste even better. I mean, there's it's a simple bourbon. I don't think that you're going to go out and dislike it. Everyone's palate's different, but I feel like this is just a bourbon that anyone can kind of get down with.
I think if you go out and you buy this bourbon for $150 or less, you're going to think it was worth it.
I would definitely. The only reason I'm giving this a beginner price is if you get it at the distillery. Any other way, it's kind of up there and quite a bit more expensive than any other bottle you'll get out there for the same proof. I think you can get 100 proof bourbon.
Okay, let me ask you this: if you went to the liquor store and you bought this for $130, you never drank bourbon before, but you bought this for $100, or you could go to the liquor store and get a Jim Beam, the white label here, for $22. Which one do you think would make them come back and drink more bourbon?
Taylor.
It would, wouldn't it?
Taylor would.
That's my opinion. If you bought this one and you spent $130, you're like, dang, bourbon's expensive. I'll probably never drink bourbon again, but you'll drink that, you'll probably come back.
If you got the same palate as us, you're coming back.
If you only pay $22 for this Jim Beam and you drink it, you'll probably be like, man, I'm acquiring the taste for bourbon. I like it. I want to experiment, and let's go out and get a $40 bottle next, and let's go out and you keep going up until you find something that you really like. But I think they'll both make you come back.
I think if you've never had bourbon before and you get this one as your first bottle, you'll probably go back for this same bottle again.
You'll be spoiled.
Yeah.
It'll spoil you.
I'm giving 9.
A 9.
9.
Well, so my opinion, I love the bottle and the packaging. It looks good on the shelf. It is
That's
collector's.
included in my appearance, by the way.
Yeah, it is a collector's kind of bourbon. It's allocated, so everybody's after those allocated, hard to find bottles. This one was $55 at the distillery. So if you're anywhere near Frankfort, Kentucky, you can get this one for $55. You can buy one every 3 months for that price. And at the liquor store, it's a little bit more expensive, unless you go to like one of those box liquor stores, like a Total Wine or a Liquor Barn, something like that. It may be cheaper there. But I like it. I think it's beginner friendly. I think it's expert friendly. I think it's I'm repeating. My my producer says I'm repeating. I am a repeater. Ask anybody I work with. Anyway, I love the smell. This is probably, out of all the bottles in here that I've actually tasted, this is my favorite smell out of any of them.
That's saying a lot considering the 4 Roses that we did last week.
The 4 Roses was good. It was
really
extra sweet. I think this one is more balanced. It's not over the top sweet with the smell.
See, once again, I'm not comparing the bourbon to another. He's making a claim that this is his favorite smell out of the entire bourbon basement.
Of the ones that I've tasted.
Well,
there's
a lot of unopened
bottles here, and some that I've never tasted. But anyway, with all that, and me thinking about all of that, I had given this a 9 before you did.
I knew it was a 9. I knew it was a 9 after everything was considered. It had to be.
I'm going to say the only reason that it's not a 10 is because I haven't tried different versions of it to see if they are better. Because I can't give it a 10 and then have the single barrel be, wow, this is so much better than that one.
You're not comparing it to each other.
A 9.
You're not comparing it to each other.
How can you complain about me giving it a 9? A 9
because
is
you're saying if you had a single barrel of this and you're like, wow, this blows that one out of the water. It's not about that.
But then I'd be giving them both a 10.
That's fine. You can have multiple 10s.
Or multiple 9s.
He's never understood the scoring system. He's never understood the scoring system here.
5 stars, 9 out of 10 rating. What do you think?
Huh?
I'm going to max it out in stars, but give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough, whatever. Very good bourbon, guys. Highly, highly, highly recommend if you have a chance to get it. If you have a chance to get it at the distiller's price, go for it. If not, I'd pay the regular price for it in a liquor store.
If I found it, I'd buy it. Period. If I didn't have a bottle, I wouldn't have 5 bottles at $130. But I'd have one. If I
We
didn't
drank
have,
them all.
if I didn't have one, and I looked up Buffalo Trace, and they weren't serving E.H. Taylor that day, they didn't have it on a shelf, I'd probably go to the liquor store. If I saw it, I'd buy it. So I'd have one.
Highly recommend, guys. You got to give this one a try if you haven't already. I can't recommend it enough. Everyone's palate's going to be different, but I mean, you got 2 people here that are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's a good bourbon.
It's
a real good bourbon.
We tasted a lot alike too.
That's like a first.
Well, last week we did too. I think maybe we're syncing.
Maybe your palate's developing more.
Maybe.
I've always tasted some things that you're like, oh, no.
Maybe my palate's.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it. This was a very enjoyable episode for me, and I'm sure it was for him too. Hopefully it was just as enjoyable. Sorry, we forgot to invite you all to drink again. We were kind of really excited to jump into this.
Next week, please remind us to invite everyone to grab a bottle and
if
drink.
If you've watched this before, you know that we invite you to drink whenever we're streaming here just to have,
whenever we remember, because we never remember.
You know that we always invite you all to drink, but just apologies. We were really excited to jump into this one. But hopefully you all enjoyed it as much as we did behind the camera here, because it was real enjoyable.
It was, I agree.
And I look forward to having another glass in the future. Hopefully we make this one last a little longer than some of the other ones. I know that
you may be done tonight.
Oh gosh.
No, just kidding.
Well, that was wishful thinking, I guess. All right, all that being said, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Give us a little bit of time out of your day. If you want to support us on the YouTube channel, go drop a sub. We are live every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube and Twitch. So you can find all, once again, didn't know we had the silence all cell phones when we're the only ones on set.
At least it wasn't a ring. It was just the old horn.
Anyway, guys.
Hold on. It was a text. During the show, let's see. Tuned in live. Didn't have E.H. Taylor, unfortunately. But we're going to try to get some soon.
Shout out to the fam.
You two are awesome and have the best. Uh-oh. I got to open it. I'm sorry.
Shout out to the fam. We won't
say who it was.
Way.
I'm sorry, Way.
Okay. I was going to say we won't say who it was. But
you two are awesome and have the best producer. P.S. We want to tag along to Castle and Key whenever you go. You're on. Castle and Key, maybe our next trip.
You know, he never silences his cell phone. We do have a comment section on YouTube that you can post in.
We will answer text and comment.
We do take comments. Anyway, guys, I don't even remember where I was at in the intro. Support us on YouTube. Go drop a sub, or Twitch if you want to drop a follow over there. But you can find all of our archive videos on our YouTube channel. We also do have a TikTok, The Bourbon Basement, no spaces, same as our YouTube and Twitch. And all that being said, guys, go get yourself some E.H. Taylor. Hope you all do go on to enjoy. As always, Ryan.
Steve.
Why drink alone?
When you can drink with us.
We'll see y'all next Friday.
Hey, can I have a hug? Come on, this time.
No.
For sure. All right. I'll enjoy another Kentucky hug, man.